My name is Abigail, and I thought my husband would protect me when I got sick. I thought he'd hold my hand, stand by me, help me heal. Instead, he told me we couldn't afford it. Then he bought another woman a luxury car. What he didn't, was, I kept the receipts, and at the next family dinner, I brought them all with me. It started with a pain I couldn't ignore anymore, low, sharp, and constant. I brushed it off for months, blaming stress, lack of sleep, age. But the day I collapsed while carrying groceries up the porch, I knew I had to stop pretending. The diagnosis came quietly. Uterine fibroids. Benign, thank God, but growing. I needed surgery, soon, before they caused more damage. The doctor was kind, explained the procedure, the risks, the timeline. I nodded, pretending I wasn't terrified. That night. I sat across from Richard at the dinner table. His phone was face up beside his plate, blinking with new messages. He didn't look up when I said the word surgery, didn't flinch when I said out-of-pocket costs. He just cut into his steak and said, "We'll talk about it later." Later never came. Weeks passed. I worked through the pain, folding laundry with a heating pad strapped to my waist, cooking his protein-packed breakfasts while trying not to double over. I researched insurance options, financing plans, anything. Richard stayed vague. "Let me handle it," he'd say. But nothing was ever handled, just postponed, ignored. Then one afternoon, while searching for a utility bill in his desk drawer, I found the envelope. Thick, cream-colored paper. A dealership logo embossed at the top. I unfolded it slowly. Porsche Cayenne. 78,920s. Recipient: Megan Lee. My first thought wasn't even anger, it was confusion. Who the hell was Megan Lee? I turned the page, hands trembling. There were signatures, his, hers, notes about custom features, pearl white paint, red leather, interior, monogrammed seat covers. My stomach turned. I walked out of his office, sat on the bottom step of the staircase, and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, trying to remember the last time Richard had bought me anything that wasn't on sale or labeled practical. He hadn't even offered to drive me to the doctor's office. That night, I made his favorite dinner, grilled. Salmon with lemon butter sauce. I set the table, lit a candle. He walked in talking on the phone, laughing, dropped his briefcase on the couch, and didn't notice the tension in the air. I waited for him to finish his call. Then I asked, calm, as I could manage, "Who's Megan Lee?" He froze for just a second. A flicker of panic crossed his face, too quick for most to catch. But I saw it. I always saw everything. "She's my cousin's daughter," he said without missing a beat. "Just got her license, needed a car. I helped out." "With a $78,000 Porsche?" He sighed, like I was being ridiculous. "It was a lease, and I wrote it off through the company. You wouldn't understand." That line, "you wouldn't understand," burned deeper than the pain in my abdomen. It wasn't just dismissive. It was confirmation. He wasn't even trying to lie convincingly. He just didn't care if I believed him or not. I didn't argue. I just nodded. Okay. But from that moment on, I began collecting everything. Every receipt, every transaction, every photo, every shred of proof. Because I knew something he didn't. I may have been quiet. I may have been compliant. But I was not stupid, and I was not going to die in silence. Richard thought I'd let it go. He always did. He believed I was the kind of woman who forgave everything, too soft to leave, too dependent to fight back. But this time something in me shifted, something permanent. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't pack a suitcase. I simply smiled, cleared the dinner table like I always did, and slipped back into the role he had assigned me long ago. But behind that smile, I had already begun writing a new story. I started collecting things, not out of revenge, at least not at first, but for survival. I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining things, that I wasn't crazy, that the man I had built my entire life around was betraying me in the most calculated, heartless way. I kept everything inside an old sewing box, tucked away behind unused fabric swatches in my closet. The car receipt, bank statements, even screenshots from Megan's Instagram, where she proudly posed with a brand new Porsche, her hand on the red leather steering wheel, the logo glinting in the sun. In one photo, Richard's reflection appeared faintly in the passenger side window. Her caption read, "He knows my style. Ah, spoiled." Her style, apparently, was funded by the money I needed for my surgery. I didn't ask him about it again. I didn't need to. Instead, I met up with Gina, an old friend from high school who now worked at the DMV. Over coffee, she confirmed what I already suspected. Megan Lee wasn't a cousin or employee or anything close. The car had been fully registered in her name. No lease, no business involvement, just a private, personal gift. Back home, I continued to play my part. I still made his protein-packed breakfasts, still ironed his shirts, still reminded him of his mother's appointments. But I no longer made eye contact, and I no longer hoped. The pain in my stomach grew sharper with each passing day. I took 2 Tylenol every morning just to stand upright and placed a heating pad under my stomach at night so I could sleep. One evening, when I dared to bring up my worsening condition again, Richard didn't even glance away from his laptop. "You're not dying," he said. "Don't be dramatic." Meanwhile, I took a part-time job at a small bookstore down the street. It wasn't much, just 10 hours a week, but it gave me a sliver of independence and a reason to leave the house. When I told Richard, he barely looked up. "A hobby? Really?" he said with that mocking laugh of his. "We've got enough books collecting dust." No, Richard, what I needed wasn't a hobby, it was air. And for the first time in years, I was learning how to breathe again. One afternoon, I saw her, Megan. She had come to the house. I watched her from the laundry room window as she stepped out of the Porsche in a skin-tight dress and designer heels, laughing as Richard held the door open for her. She didn't look like a cousin. She looked like a queen being escorted into her palace. And I was the housemaid folding sheets upstairs. He didn't care if I saw her. He didn't care if I knew, because he didn't think I would ever do anything about it. But I was waiting. And the perfect opportunity was only a few days away, his mother's birthday dinner. A full family gathering, siblings, cousins, in-laws, all under one roof. They all adored Richard, the golden son, the successful husband, the perfect provider. I wondered how they'd react when they saw what I had prepared for dessert. Not cake, not pie, but the truth, served on paper, in front of every one of them. But before I continue this story, I want to take a moment to connect with you. Yes, you? Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. I know some of you might be watching this alone, maybe late at night, maybe on your lunch break. And I just want to say, you're not alone. Because right now, I'm here with you telling this story, word by word, step by step, and trust me, what comes next is worth staying for. The night of the dinner, I arrived exactly on time, holding a bottle of wine in one hand and a small black folder in the other. I wore a dark green dress I hadn't touched in years, modest but elegant, with sleeves that covered the bruises time had left on my spirit. Richard was already there, surrounded by his sisters and cousins, laughing that hollow laugh he always reserved for audiences. When he saw me walk in, his smile faltered for just a moment. Then, as if remembering the script, he plastered it back on and greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, like nothing was wrong. Like he hadn't betrayed me in the most humiliating way. Dinner was loud and cheerful at first. The table overflowed with roast lamb, sweet potatoes, warm rolls, and sparkling cider. His mother beamed from her seat at the head of the table, wearing pearls that matched the ones Richard had bought her last Christmas. She had always preferred him, her only son, her pride, and tonight was no different. I played my part well, nodding when expected, smiling when spoken to, eating slowly, quietly. But under the table, my fingers rested on the folder in my lap. After dessert, when the plates had been cleared and everyone was relaxed, I stood up. No one paid much attention at first. They probably assumed I was going to help with dishes. I cleared my throat gently, then set the folder in the center of the table. "I know this isn't exactly a birthday present," I said, my voice calm and level. "But I thought the family might want to see how Richard has been spending our household budget lately." A ripple of confused murmurs ran through the room. Richard's face went pale. His eyes darted toward me, then to the folder, and then to his mother, who was already reaching for it with curious fingers. She opened the cover, pulled out the first page, and read the dealership invoice aloud. Porsche Cayenne. Megan Lee? $78,000? Her voice cracked just slightly at the end. She looked up at her son. "Who's Megan Lee?" Richard stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "This is ridiculous," he snapped, his voice strained. "Abigail, what are you doing?" "I'm sharing," I said simply. "Since you refuse to tell the truth at home, I thought perhaps your family could help you find the courage here." More pages slid out of the folder. Bank transfers, a timeline of messages, screenshots of public posts. No emotion crossed. Richard's face at first. Then the muscle near his jaw twitched. He reached for the folder, but his younger sister pulled it closer to herself before he could. "Is this real?" she asked me quietly, eyes wide. "It's all real," I replied. While I was skipping my surgery because we couldn't afford it, he was buying a car for his mistress. The word landed like a slap. Gasps. Awkward silence. One cousin put down her wine glass without drinking. His mother's hands trembled. As she flipped through the evidence, one paper at a time, each sheet stripping away a layer of Richard's polished exterior. He tried to recover. "You're acting crazy, Abigail. You're blowing things out of proportion. I already explained." You said she was your cousin's daughter," I interrupted, voice steady. "But she's not, is she?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. And in that silence I felt something crack, not in me but around me. The illusion, the performance, the carefully constructed narrative he had built for decades, collapsing like a house of cards. "You let me suffer," I said, looking straight into his eyes. "You watched me in pain and did nothing, because you thought I had nowhere else to go." His face hardened. "Are you trying to humiliate me?" "No," I said, my voice suddenly quiet. "You did that to yourself. I'm just done covering for you." And with that, I picked up my purse and walked away from the table. I could feel every eye on me as I left the room. No one tried to stop me. Not even him. I didn't cry on the drive home. I didn't scream into the steering wheel. I turned on the radio, rolled the window down, and let the cool night air rush against my skin like a baptism. It felt like freedom. Raw, terrifying, exhilarating freedom. And somewhere deep in my chest, something began to heal. Not my body, not yet, but something older, something that had been broken for a very long time. 2 weeks after the dinner, I received a text from Richard. Just one line. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. He called the next day, left a voicemail, said he regretted how things played out, that maybe we both overreacted, and that it's not too late to fix this. His voice was clipped, too measured, too calm. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. Scared of how he looked now that the mask had slipped. Scared of what his family might think of their golden son after the truth settled in. I never called him back. Instead, I focused on healing. With help from Gina and a few quiet friends who had seen more than they'd ever said. Aloud, I got the surgery scheduled. I covered the costs myself, dipping into the small account I'd opened without telling Richard years ago, just in case. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Recovery was slow, painful at times, but every ache felt like progress. And for the first time in years, I felt like my body belonged to me again. I moved in with Gina for a while. Her spare room was small and filled with boxes of old textbooks, but it felt safer than the house I'd once called home. I slept without fear of being watched, judged, or dismissed. I ate when I was hungry, not when someone else was ready. I listened to music again. I laughed, softly at first, then louder. Richard tried to reach me again, email this time. He wrote a long, rambling message about how much pressure he was under, how difficult it had been to manage everything, and how I hadn't made things easier by being so emotional. I deleted it, then came the flowers, a dozen white roses with a card that read, "I miss the way things used to be." I threw them in the trash, but Richard wasn't the only one unraveling. Through whispers in town, I heard Megan had vanished, just days after the dinner. One moment she was driving the Porsche, posting pictures from rooftop bars. The next she was gone. No posts, no appearances. I wasn't surprised. Women like her don't stay when the illusion of power starts to rot. She had gotten what she wanted, and when the shine wore off, she left. As for Richard, his family no longer looked at him the same way. His mother stopped taking his calls. His sisters told him they were disappointed and needed space. He had always been the admired one, the one who had it all together. But admiration is fragile, and once it's cracked, it doesn't shine again. The final blow came when I filed for divorce. I walked into the attorney's office with a file of documentation, financial records, proof of infidelity, medical receipts, written statements from friends who had witnessed his behavior. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Kelsey, flipped through the evidence, then looked at me and said, "You've been carrying this for a long time." I nodded. "Too long." She smiled. "Then let's put it down." The proceedings were quieter than I expected. Richard didn't fight much, not because he accepted it, but because he was trying to minimize damage. He wanted everything to disappear quietly. But it was too late for silence. The damage had already been done. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I moved into a small apartment downtown. It wasn't fancy, but the windows let in good light and the floors didn't creak with someone else's expectations. I started working part-time at a local nonprofit that supported women rebuilding their lives after emotional abuse. I didn't tell them everything about me, not right away. But when I did, they didn't look at me with pity. They looked at me like I was strong, and I was, stronger than I'd ever been. One morning, while walking past the bakery on 3rd Street, I saw Richard across the road. He looked smaller somehow, older. He was wearing the same gray jacket he used to leave draped across our kitchen chair, but it hung off his frame now, like it no longer fit him. Or maybe he no longer fit inside the life he once controlled. He saw me. I saw the flicker of recognition, the way his eyes softened as if part of him still believed I might come back. He raised his hand halfway, unsure. I didn't wave back. I turned and kept walking, sunlight warm on my shoulders, my steps light and even. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't chasing affection or bracing for disappointment. I was just walking toward a life that was mine, entirely mine, and I didn't look back. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about reclaiming your voice after years of being silenced. It's about the quiet strength it takes to walk away from someone who no longer sees your worth, and the courage it takes to rebuild a life from the ground up, on your own terms. Abigail's journey reminds us that love without respect isn't love at all, and that no one, no matter how long they've been ignored, hurt, or dismissed, is ever too far gone to begin again. Now, I'd love to hear from you. If this story moved you or reminded you of someone strong in your life, comment 2 below. If it didn't resonate with you, that's okay too. Just drop a 7. Either way, your voice matters here. And if you found even a small piece of value in this story, please consider giving it a like. It really helps more people find stories that matter. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter. I'll be right here, waiting to tell you the next story when you're ready.